We're back with another episode of the One Pour Problems podcast, and today I am joined by Chris Ulbrich, chairman of Ulbrich Stainless Steels and Special Metals. Super excited to have you on the show. Appreciate you coming on, and even more excited now because of the special treat that you brought today.
Thanks, Sal. Looking forward to seeing your new digs when they're done.
Yeah, it's going to be great.
So my special treat, right, is Pappy Van Winkle. Yeah. 15-year-old bourbon. You know, the story behind it is we sold a company last year, which we usually don't do, in Canada. Fortunately, perfect timing with everything that's going on in the marketplace, and, you know, with tariffs and stuff. And we bought 3 companies. So this was a celebration for a few of us at the company. So
Love
cheers. Good being with you.
Yeah,
Wish you the best
that.
with your move here, and
Yeah,
and thanks for having me
Likewise.
and talking about our company and wellness.
Mm-hmm. So, for those who don't know, Pappy Van Winkle is like the name in bourbon, right? It's the most sought after. There's an awesome Netflix movie about the heist, and there's again, this is one of the hardest bourbons to be able to acquire, and so the fact that you got it for your celebration and brought it here today for me to have, definitely appreciate it. Most people that are tuning in know my obsession with bourbon, and so the fact that normally I bring the booze on the show, but you decided to bring a treat, definitely much appreciated.
You're welcome.
And this is
And quite a collection you have. You showed me. Wow.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Ouch.
Yeah. Like I said, it's a love-hate relationship there. Love the bourbon, hate the amount that it costs. But
Yeah.
Again, collecting it, and this is exactly why I do it, is to be able to share the experiences. And so, you know, I have some Van Winkles at my house in my collection, but I won't drink them, you know, by myself or something like that. It has to be an occasion. Someone's coming over or someone wants to try it for the first time, and it's the experience that you can give. That's what I love about it.
And I like the history of the area. We were there 18 months ago for Bourbon Tour.
Yep.
And unfortunately, they're going through some tough times right now with the flooding at Buffalo Trace and some other places down there.
Yeah. Pretty wild seeing it underwater.
Yeah, 24 people got killed, I understand. It's terrible.
It's crazy.
In that area. So
yeah, that's
wish everybody the best.
Yeah, that's tough. So, goal of today is to talk to you a little bit about your perspective on employee wellness, and I'm really interested in hearing a little bit about your background first, because you're the first person that I've had on the show that is not in a day-to-day leadership role of the organization now that you have stepped into the chairman role. And so I'm really interested to hear about, you know, your journey and what led you to here today. I know that, again, you're a 101-year-old family-owned organization, and your son is stepping into the CEO role right now. And so a really cool story, something that I think our viewers definitely should learn about. So give us a little bit about your background.
Well, let's see. I've been with the company 47 years. I'm third generation. My grandfather started the company in 1924. Had 3 sons, Fred, Dick, and Dan. And Dan died in 79. Dick died in 2008. My father died in 2010. And I'm third generation. And my son is fourth. And you know, after this year of selling a company, buying 3 companies, and our 100-year anniversary was all 2024, and we redid our strategy. It was a very busy year. This was a perfect time to turn over the reins and all the direct reports to my son John, and he was running 6 of our companies anyway, so he was doing good. And as chairman, I'm working on some strategy, acquisitions, some energy projects, and managing the board. And we have extended family. We have a couple of people on the board who are investors and in the company, and so that's where I spend my time. And I came up through the ranks in purchasing, sales, then ran our wire company over the years. And then since 1998, everything reported to me and another executive over the years. So here we are. 700 people worldwide and we're more than metal.
Yeah.
Our metal goes into hypodermic needles, airbags, space capsules, solar arrays. Some of the speakers in this room have titanium foil in them, and they vibrate, and you hear the music or the sound. That's our metal. So we're more than metal. You're not far from Ulbrich product. Sprinkler heads in the room here.
Yep.
Or my stents in my heart, that they use down in the Middletown Hospital. Yep. So you name it. So
very cool. Yeah.
Yep.
And so, being in the business for 47 years and obviously in a leadership role for a large majority of that, how has the transition been for you? Because again, most of this conversation that I have with leaders they're transitioning into the role, right? You're transitioning out of that role.
Yeah.
And yes, focusing on strategy and these bigger picture items. But how's that transition been for you?
Well, I think fine. I mean, I keep busy. We were talking how I like to read. I like to golf. Politically active. I'm working on a couple state agencies, office of OHS for the governor's office, and I got plenty to do. Got plenty to do.
Yep.
And the chairman role, there's still things to do and communicate with, et cetera. We signed a new lease, got involved with that, so yep. It's good. It's good. And the most important point with this was our succession. You got to be ready for the next generation in every aspect, in every position. As people retire, we have people working with us. I just talked to a retiree. He retired 42 years.
Wow.
And he out in Chicago, he was 73 years old. He really had to retire because of safety's sake.
Yeah.
And he retired, called him up at his house. He was surprised. But I didn't see him before he retired. It was a last-minute thing. But so we have lots of retirees, and so we have to be ready for the next generation of people. And that's what we're doing. And John's part of it, and the people under John, and in our shops and HR, lots of important positions.
Yeah.
So, and it's a challenge now with our new companies, getting them ready up to our culture and speed. Yep. And then the business environment right now is a little rough with tariffs, day 3 of the tariffs, et cetera. So we'll see what happens with it all.
Yeah, and I think that's a perfect transition for us to talk about the topic that we have today, and that's specifically employee wellness and caring for your team, beyond the workplace. And you just talked about how you had a retiree that you called up at his house after he retired. And, that's just showing another level of caring about your team. And I think, a lot of times in business, you have to toe the line. You have to be willing to be, a part of their business life, but also their personal life. And I think that's at the heart of, what you care about and what you focus on. And so, talk to me a little bit about what inspired you to focus on the wellness and the preventative health care in your organization.
Well, I guess it's really 2 tracks. Our family has heart disease, and lost my grandfather, my uncles, and I have heart disease. So learning about that and trying to be prepared and what's the best diet and drugs and et cetera. So I always had an interest in that.
Yeah.
And that you see people going through some hard times. We had Tammy, I have a grandson with brain cancer. He's doing great though. Year 3, doing great. But so it's always a kind of a hobby. Come on, we can do better. We can do better in this country, and we can do better in businesses. And it's okay if people, you do a wellness class on on nutrition, diet, or hey, here's diabetes. You do some classes. Oh, and people leave. Eventually. Oh, was it wasted? Of course, it's not wasted. They'll remember that.
Yeah.
And maybe help somebody. Maybe you meet people and they say, you're just delaying stuff for 10 years, and people are going to leave anyways. So who cares? No, you should care. It's the morally right thing to do. You're right next to a hospital here. So come on. And it's not that hard.
Yeah.
Isn't it better to be involved with people's lives on a positive manner rather than, something might be, a little negative or something, not healthy.
Yep.
Not a healthy lifestyle. So as we're drinking bourbon, so that besides that, so sorry.
There's parts of this that you need, right?
Okay.
It's good for the soul.
Oh, all right.
You have to worry about that too.
No, so we kind of picked this up 12, 13 years ago, wellness, and I think I think it's been successful. And we have some stats that say that. And I think again, the government's made a mistake that there should be a percentage of all plans that do wellness. It should be 5%. We pay $1 million a month for health care for 1,200 people, families, kids, spouses. So $1 million a month with some contributions from the team members. So if we can just shave that a little bit and people get smarter, it's a home run for everybody, for the families, for ourselves, for the state, everybody. And especially if there are some chronic diseases people have, like heart disease, diabetes, things like that.
Yeah, and I think, again, I love the fact that, your first, talking point about this was specifically about, who cares if they leave, right? Like, I've given them something that they can take with them, that they can, reference back to and always have as a part of their lives. And I think that's it's a really unique perspective to have, right? Because in business, everyone thinks that you're in it for yourself. You're thinking about the business and doing right for the business. And are there benefits to, providing some of these resources to your employees? Yes, of course there are. But at the end of the day, the reason you're doing it is not for the specific benefits of your business.
Well, I think, health, safety. If you know your numbers on, your sugar numbers, blood pressure, stuff like that, I think you're a stronger person for your family and everything else. So, and it's not that hard. Like we've had some things that haven't worked out well, but one real good thing is South Carolina. There's a number of people with diabetes, so we had a diabetes class in which like 30 people were there.
Wow.
And including some spouses, and then and it's all confidential, private, and people come in, share recipes, share their doctors. As it turns out, there was a doctor that was kind of a crummy doctor.
Really?
And like two or three of the people I'd been told, I keep arm's length from these things because of HIPAA law and everything else, and people volunteer stuff to me, that's okay. So 2 or 3 people changed their doctors because this doctor, I guess, wasn't the best doctor. So people learn from each other on their issue, diet, recipes, the drugs that they take, and so I think it's wonderful. And now everybody's interested. Why? My chart. Everybody has a My chart.
Yep.
What a difference that you can go on there, see. You can spend all night on it and see everything wrong with you for the last 10 years, right? That's different. And now the wearables, like I got an Oura ring.
Yep, I was just about to ask you about that.
I didn't sleep well last night. It brings up on the phone. You look at it, and you go, oh, I didn't sleep well, or whatever. And so you change something.
Yep.
And there's lots of wearables. Or diabetes now, people have the Dexcon machine that puts the diabetes in you, that puts the medicine in you as when your sugar hits certain levels and things like that.
Yeah.
Oh my God, it's life-changing. And Apple Watches people have, so I think people are becoming more and more interested.
Yeah.
maybe just me because I'm older versus other people.
Mm-hmm.
No, but I think even the younger people are getting more interested. Less people smoking.
Yep.
In America, I mean, what was the percentages? It was like 60, 70, 60%, and now it's 17% or something.
Yeah, and I had just one of the previous shows, we had Bill Alderman, who runs a aerospace M&A firm, and he had non-alcoholic beer on the episode, and I had never actually had non-alcoholic beer, and so it was a really good experience for me to be able to try that. But then we started talking about some of the stats behind it, and it's one of the fastest growing beverages in the market, and that, again, that's because people are, they may still want to have a drink for social purposes and that kind of stuff, but they don't want to have the effects of alcohol.
Yeah.
And so Athletic Brewing here in Connecticut has taken off.
Yeah, very successful company.
Yeah. And so those are, some testaments back to how things are changing a little bit. And I think it'll take time, but you're starting to see some of that. And even now with not to get political, but there is some, changes that are already a part of the new administration that are looking to change some of the way that companies put certain foods and chemicals together, and those are all good things at the end of the day.
So we ended up getting Outlive to Our People, this book from Dr. Alta, and has different sections in there on different issues, heart, cancer. So you don't have, so you can read it by chapter. You don't have to read, what you don't want to read. Yep. But talking about medicine, maybe 20 years ago it was 1.0 medicine. You're lucky you picked something up at the hospital and they caught it.
Yep.
Now it's medicine 4.0. The latest and the greatest with the wearables and diets and all these tests and things like that. And it's really interesting how they're using your DNA to inject it back into you to cure some of the diseases that you might have. Yeah. And they're actually doing it.
Yep.
And so it's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
And people really enjoyed the book. Yep. Yep.
Yeah, that's cool that you were able to provide that as a resource. And it's not maybe the size of the organization and how many copies of the book you'd have to provide, but at the same time, that's not a crazy thing to do, right? Any organization can provide someone with a book to be able to help them at least learn something about what they're going through or dealing with, and some things to potentially make changes.
It's a tool, guidance. It's a tool. You can use it how you want. And in the book, there's a section on something called a Grail test. Grail is you take 2 tubes of blood out of your arm at Quest, and costs $900, and identifies 50 cancer markers. So 185 of our people took it voluntarily, confidentially, and we paid for it. And 3 people had some issues.
Wow.
And one person's spouse had an issue because I got a call from him saying, "I'm retiring tomorrow. I got to take care of my wife because of your test. She, had a cancer." And and he was going to retire at the year end, but he upped it. So and she wasn't scheduled to go to a doctor for a year. Wow. So here's this test that we can have for $900, which I understand is I didn't get for $600 now. Oh my God, it's wonderful. Come on. Why isn't this offered?
Yeah.
Why isn't this offered to people? Why aren't more people doing it? I know some people don't want to know things and they're scared and they can't sleep and things like that. But, it's hard being very sick and bedridden too. So you got to make that choice as an adult,
Yeah. And I think that there's also something to be said about, maybe it might just be the way that, we're all wired here in America, where, our healthcare system is more like a critical care system rather than
that's true.
Focused on prevention. And, I look at it as the same problem I have with a lot of my my tax accountants, right? Where I'm like, I'm looking for tax planning. Like I want to come up with these strategies and different things I should be doing all before I get to preparing my taxes, right? You should be doing the same thing on the healthcare side. And I think, it's really unique for you to offer something like that, and specifically something that can make a life-changing, maneuver for somebody. And, I think that's really great and, an admirable thing that you're doing in the organization.
Yeah, that's what Outlive about 4.0. You plan on all the issues that you may have in life or your family's DNA and all that stuff. And very interesting.
Yeah.
That's what, it starts, babies being born and harvesting the umbilical cord for future diseases in your family. I mean, there's all kinds of things going on.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, our hospital systems and our medical systems, are behind on a whole bunch of fronts for a bunch of reasons. Not to get political, but it's, like in this state, we don't have choice. There's 2 hospitals basically.
Yep.
And that's I'm not so sure that's the most positive thing.
Yeah.
Competition's good.
Yeah, for sure. It continues to elevate everybody and push everyone forward. I completely agree with that.
And they were allowed to merge and all this stuff for more wellness and more PPC, PPCs. Well, I don't think that worked very well.
Yeah.
You try to get an appointment with a dermatologist or, primary care provider. Very, very difficult.
Yeah.
At times.
And I think that's part of our problem, right? Because at the end of the day, I think about it myself. I'm 32 and I'm like, starting to get to the point where there's, all right, you should be thinking about cholesterol and, all the different levels when you go and do these tests. And it is like the medium of access that is what's discouraging, because people are like, oh, well, I want to go get this thing checked out because it's a current thing I'm thinking about. And then you find out it's like five months later, like is when you can go get it checked out. Yeah. And so, I think that's.
And then it's even worse for people, in low income communities and it's proven people of color. They don't have the full access in some cases, and we can do better. Come on.
Yeah.
And wellness is a solution for it.
Yeah. And it sounds like, you did this cancer test in your organization and, you ended up having an employee's wife obviously get detected for having it. How did that experience shape the way that you view wellness?
Successes and it's just proven that you can do the things that you can do to change people's lives for the better. And wellness works, and a little bit of attention, a little bit of reading, a little bit of money, pointing. And I think this is where we're going. I wouldn't be surprised if that test was required one of these days. Again, everything's confidential, and or doing sugar tests. Why isn't that required when you go see your doctor?
Yeah.
Not for everybody. Anyways, so we got a long way to go in medicine, and right, you want to be here. That's why you have a 401k or whatever's left of your 401k after this week.
Yep. True.
Yeah.
So
right?
you have, you did that test, talked about the book. What are some other health initiatives that you've implemented, and what are some of the responses from your team? How do the employees feel about this?
Well, we've had some people in HR sit down with every single person one-on-one, talk about our plan, answer any questions, how to use it better, how do you, instead of going to emergency room, go to CVS, and here's, the choices. You go to emergency room for this.
Yep.
And, educated people. We're in education. We have a newsletter, HealthWise, Ulbrich HealthWise.
That's cool.
Do a newsletter. We do classes, nutrition, different things, and education. People take it in, I found can't do too much of it because then it burns people out. But, at the same time, I think more and more people, want to do the right thing for their family, their health. And so you're giving the tools to do it. Yeah. And I think we've seen, and people have come up to me and has said, oh yeah, I found this, I found this, I found this. So it's helping the future. It's helping the future costs, future families, less claims, less, they're educated, people are more educated. So I think it's the right thing to do. It's working good.
Yeah. That's great.
Fighting the medical system, because a lot of times it's, wellness is the last thing when you go to hospital. But
so if I was a company that I wasn't doing anything like this, yes, I have a medical plan in place that I offer to my employees, and we generally walk through what it includes. But say I'm an employer that, we do that part of it, but we're looking to do more, right? But we're worried about the cost of some of these things. Maybe I don't have the $900 or $600 now to do the test side. But like, what are some things that, I would do as a business leader to try to do more?
Well, I think you can offer even employees lunches, team members lunches, have a speaker on nutrition, or have a local hospital come in, or somebody show my chart. Do people even know how to read a my chart? And how do you get smarter about your health? Why it's so important to know your numbers. I don't think it costs a lot of money to do a A1-3 test, and a blood pressure at the office, and so you got to provide a safe atmosphere, confidential atmosphere, make sure it's private. And, people get to know one day we had one of these health fairs, and the nurse called 911 because somebody was like really not well with their blood pressure.
Wow.
The ambulance came. I go, oh, that's a successful health fair, taking somebody out, no. So so they learned something.
Yeah.
Person learned something, I mean, that says something when you.
Yeah. It's a good place to start for sure.
And a good one lesson that I learned from one of our people had a heart attack, and his wife was driving him to the hospital, and he had a heart attack in the car. Helicopter came, saved his life. The paramedics in this state, in South Carolina. So if you think you're having a heart attack, call 911.
Yep. Don't
drive anywhere.
Yeah.
You rather don't have a heart attack in the car. Let the professionals do it. They were there in minutes. Took care of. He's back at work. He's doing great.
Wow.
Don't know all the details, but don't drive.
That's a lesson for you. That's
don't drive. That's a lesson for everybody.
Yeah. Wow. So I remember reading in some of the pre-show notes that you have less than 1% turnover in your organization. First of all, like, kudos to you guys. That's an incredible stat. And even more incredible, some of them are there for 40 years. And how much do you attribute that to your focus on caring about the employees' like wellness and their families?
Well, I think we have family values in our value chain, and with that, our culture I think is strong, and wellness is part of it. And we have a bonus program. We share our profits when we have profits, and it's a whole formula. It's like a big puzzle.
Yeah.
500-piece puzzle, and a couple pieces are missing. It's not a pretty picture. So we've worked hard for 100 years. We have I think we have a great culture and great people and great markets. Yeah, we're more than metal, right?
More than metal. That's right.
No, so and people stay, and people like, Connecticut is wonderful. Connecticut's between two cities, New York and Boston. You got the ocean, you got the mountains. Connecticut's a wonderful place. People want to be here.
Yeah.
It's not always greener on the side of the mountain. And younger people are now with their families, at home, because maybe they can't can't buy a house or they're in an apartment. And so we're able to retain a lot of people and give them a great career, safe career. We want people to come in safe, go home the way they came in, and hopefully with some medical knowledge and be a little healthier.
That's right.
Huh?
Yeah. And I love that because, in our organization, we obviously focus on like career progression, but one of the main staples of our organization is personal progression. And so we're doing something similar. I would say not at the level that you are. And again, I admire the things that you're doing. And I'm taking notes myself right now of like, what can we go bring back to our team? But I am like, in our organization, we have either it's a 401k advisor or we have a banking organization come and tell us about different types of checking accounts and savings accounts and mortgage options, or how to understand, whether it's nutrition, it's how to understand. I think this week we actually have someone coming in to talk about the home buying process. And
that's
just
great.
like first time home buying, like how does that work and what should you know and look out for and all that stuff. And, I think organizations now are the ones that are successful at retaining and, keeping their top talent. They're doing some of these things that are more unorthodox. Yeah. And you have to really invest in those things to be able to offer this like comprehensive, approach to employment,
Yeah, we have a financial advisor. We give our team members $1,500 for as they near retirement to have a financial advisor. So we have one in which doesn't sell anything at all. He's no insurance or anything like that, and people can sit with him and share everything confidentially again. And I understand he's helped people tremendously because we're all too busy. I mean, does everybody know where their investments are and insurance policies and all this stuff? No. Yep. So you get them all together with somebody, and somebody says, you know what? Don't take Social Security into your, 68, or whatever. Yep. So or be more diversified and to weather storms, like whatever. So I think people have appreciated that.
Yeah.
And, a financial advisor, and they can go to somebody else if they don't want to talk to this gentleman. Yeah. With the funds, and we pay enough to that limit. Some people charge more money after that. That's great. So and you work your whole life for 40 years for 401k. Might as well a little extra effort, make sure it's invested the right way and taken care of the right way. All the paperwork's done correctly. Yeah, and those things are so important. And one of the things that I love about our organization and what Foster, our CEO, put in place when he first kind of got to the point where he could offer a 401k is we give 3% to everyone's 401k, regardless if they contribute or not. Yeah. And, I know there's some people are like, oh, I would rather have a match or something like that. Yeah. But the way I look at it is when you're first starting out in the organization, and we are definitely well known for our IT training program where we take recent college grads. Yeah. We put them through a 90-day training program and bring them up through our organization. So it's kind of like our own, farm system. But those employees who are starting off in their first job, their income level may not be at the point where they can go put money into their 401k. Yeah. And so rather than them getting, 1, 2, 3, 5 years down the road with nothing in their 401k, we're starting right away and giving them the 3%. And so, doing things like that, or one of the other major benefits of being, an organization in general is you have a little bit more buying power, a little bit more sway. And, we've worked with some of our partners. We have an organization, Arch Law Group, that they, an attorney practice, but they offer this package to our employees for setting up like a basic will and estate plan, like, some of the documents that no one really thinks about until like they need to think about it. That's good.
And so good. Those are, I see those things as like part of that whole wellness package where you're really thinking about the employee and their life.
Yeah, and you want to do stuff so there's a little wall between the company and the team members too, so because it's confidential and stuff like that, and not have one attorney, and somebody doesn't do a good job, and then they're blaming people are blaming the company, but it's good to offer things. We do a lot of stuff through chambers and stuff like that, so people have the choice to do what they want.
Yeah, that's great.
And then the other thing, and one thing in our culture, I think is strong, is community involvement. So we do community events in South Carolina. They just built beds at a homeless shelter. We've worked at a homeless shelter here. We're active with the Boys and Girls Club, our family, for over 60 years.
Wow.
Yeah, my wife and I are on the board of the Boys and Girls Club in New Haven, and the Ulbrich Clubhouse in Wallingford that we help establish. So giving back to the community, very important with kids coming through this. With kids coming through the system.
That's very cool.
Matter of fact, Boys and Girls Club came in second, I guess, in the region for their clubhouse and for community action stuff.
Wow,
they did really, really good.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So we really upped the community involvement, and that really ties people together. So, young people love it, working with their peers, and of course. People want more time for themselves too, so that's an issue out there. So we try to do that, but
So you talk about a bunch of the different health related things that you're doing in the organization. How do you create that culture where people feel comfortable, feel safe, talking about those health issues at work?
Well, I think people. Again, HIPAA is very strong. That we all sign on that. We all agree, keep things confidential. But at the same time, if people are open to talk to their peers or their friends at work, or if they have a question in HR, which is confidential, they do it. Or they do it. So it's or sitting in a room and learning about nutrition. That's it's not so confidential. Yeah. But and we're not showing people's numbers on the board. So you gotta have that wall in between, make people comfortable, and this is information. It's not weaponized.
Yeah.
Let's and I think that's the point of HIPAA. People didn't you want confidential on what people's illnesses are. Yeah. Even though you go to the doctor's office, Chris, oh yeah, come on in. I'm glad it's confidential here. Seriously.
Yep. Yeah.
I got a good heart. Heart's okay today.
That's good.
When you're at the heart doctor, right? That's supposed to be HIPAA approved, right? Seriously.
Yep.
It doesn't work that way.
So you have, you have these initiatives that you've put throughout your organization. Have you seen any tangible shift in the way that your employees are approaching their health, since you've put those in place?
I believe a lot of people are attending some of the different things. Here's this test we offered for this cancer thing, and you don't want to find out you have cancer, right? And this is a tough thing. 185 people signed up for it. 184 people signed up for it, voluntarily. Yeah. And, so I think people are more comfortable coming forward, they have a trusting environment. They want to know more stuff. And again, I think we're seeing some results. Now, is our healthcare getting cheaper? No, because high cost claims and lack of competition in the state keeps claims high. And of course, these drugs that are advertised on TV, there's not a lot of generics. If they're advertised on TV, there's probably no generics. So it's the highest priced drugs.
Yep.
Ask your doctors for generic drugs. It helps the company, helps your pocketbook.
Yeah.
And some of these drugs are, they combine the calcium with something else, and then they sell for $5,000 a script when you can buy 2 vitamins at the drugstore.
Yep.
There's I know that's the exception, but there's some issues.
Yeah.
And the PPMs, it looks like the PPMs are making all the money in this country. The hospitals have their problems, and obviously we all have our problems.
Yep.
Keeping up with bills,
Yep.
I can't imagine, and people appreciate their health plan because because they get the bills and they say, oh my goodness, this costs $20,000 and I only have to pay $120.
Yeah. And I think
guess what? The company's paying for it in many cases. And, the government gave us that job too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I get that. And I think it's an interesting takeaway to be able to say, hey, when you're talking to your doctor and they're prescribing, to ask that question, if there is generic drugs
that work just as good.
Yeah, because I think most people they don't know to ask, right? They don't know to just ask the question.
And then you hear, Humira and some of these inflammatory drugs, there's biosimilars coming out. Guess what? The biosimilars are 10 to 15% price less. That's it. So it's a whole game to take for the PPMs to get our money.
Yeah. Yep.
Our employees, our teammates, and ourselves.
Yeah.
And the hospitals. Yep. It's tough stuff.
Yeah. So I'm assuming that all these health initiatives, those are things that you put in place during your time leading the organization, right? What made you want to do that, right? Was there something in your own life that triggered hey, maybe I should offer some of these things to the organization? Or was it just something that you saw in the market? What really led to that?
No, again, I think with my family health history, education has been key. Mm-hmm. My father, my father and two uncles had bypasses, and I'm 70. I've never had a bypass, so my education, I think, has helped me not to have a major operation like that. And so I want to, continue some of the education for people, and I think it's worked. And obviously, people know a lot more about diabetes today and all these diseases, which is great, because some of them are rough, rough diseases, rough on your body, So, anyways, so I think that's what we've done.
And so, without diving too deep into the world of HIPAA, what are some wellness habits that you've taken on personally, as you've you were in the organization, stress levels may have been different at that time, and to where you are now today, what are some different wellness habits? You mentioned the Oura Ring.
Yeah.
That's a good plug there. What else?
We're just trying to eat better and exercise some.
Yeah.
And and de-stressing, not having blood pressure problems and things like that. Yeah. So I think that makes a difference.
Golf helps that.
And golf helps that, I think, sometimes.
Sometimes. Depends on the rounds going.
But I'm a member of the BGA golf organization. Ever hear of that?
Nope. Go ahead.
Bad Golfers Association. I'm a charter member.
Charter member?
I'm a 20.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure I'm on the board. So. Yep.
BGA.
That's right. The BGA.
Not easy game.
Yep.
Not easy game.
Yeah. That'll spike the blood pressure for sure.
Yeah.
That's great. So, hey, listen, I really appreciate the time today. I think we got to talk about some really great initiatives and things that your organization is doing, and 101 years of strong culture and focus on the employee and the employee's whole self rather than just what they bring to work. So again, I appreciate the insight and learning from you, and also appreciate you bringing me the treat of the Pappy Van Winkle bottle today.
Well, thank you, Sal. Thank you, everybody here.
Yeah.
Thanks for your program. Good luck with your business here.
Yeah. Appreciate it very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Cheers.
Yeah. Cheers. So I don't know if you have seen any of the other episodes, but at the end of these episodes, we after we make sure that you get the lubrication, we then give you a typing test.
A typing test.
Yep. So we test you out, see how accurately you can type in 30 seconds.
Okay.
Is that something that you're
Sure.
prepared to do?
Okay, how do you do that?
Look.
I mean, do I move the...
So you're good. So you hit start test.
Okay.
And then it won't start right away. Only when you start typing. So it'll load, and then you just go. And he's off to the races. This is always my favorite part of the episode. I get to check on the typing skills, whether or not we're one-fingered pickers or, we've taken a typing class.
How do you go? Okay.
You're cooking with gas, though. You'll be good.
Okay.
That was it?
Easy text 61, medium 71, hard text. That's it? Anything else?
Let me see what it did. Here, let me. That's the benchmark. Show your results. Does this little ad because I won't pay for the premium version of the type test. And that's the result.
So typing speed 24 times 91% accuracy.
Yep.
Get something right.
That's
22 words per minute.
22. Not bad.
Okay, the average is what, 27? Oh, April was 27.
There you go.